Our intrepid homestretch naturalist, Brian Keating, has spent the past several decades circling the globe in search of compelling wildlife stories. And last week, Brian managed to see a whopping 10% of the world's whooping crane population right here in our backyard. And he joins us now to share the details. Hi, Brian.
Hi, Doug.
All right, so it's hard enough to spot one whooping crane in the wild, and you managed to find 80 of them. How did that happen?
I know. It was a stunningly successful search.
I'll say.
Doug, it was far beyond what I had hoped for. I was hoping, if we had one sighting, it would be a total success. So I look at the other 79 as a bonus. But the secret, Doug, to the success was to go out at the time of their migration. We headed to Saskatoon, and we actually found and hired a local guide, and that's why we had such success. And remember, these birds are the tallest North American bird, Doug. They stand as tall as you and me, maybe a little shorter, and they've got a 2-meter wingspan, and they're pure white in the adult plumage, and they've got that red forehead patch. They're an amazing bird.
So the old local knowledge trick, how did that happen?
Well, a good friend of mine who's a travel writer, Carol Patterson, she wanted to do a story, a good news story, a Canadian story, and she's had never seen whooping cranes in the wild before, so she was hoping to see them. So she and her keen birder husband, Colin, found, after quite an intensive internet search, they found a fellow by the name of Stan Shattuck. Stan was incredibly qualified. He was the past president of Nature Saskatchewan, and he currently holds the eBird count record for the most number of species seen in Saskatchewan. He's been leading tours, nature tours in Saskatchewan for over 30 years, and Doug, he does it as a volunteer. He doesn't make any money from it. He's a retired university professor, actually, and he actually donates his fee to the Living Sky Wildlife Rehabilitation Center in Saskatoon, and they rehab birds and mammals and get them back out into the wild, birds that are found injured or that need assistance. Anyway, we met up with him on the outskirts of Saskatoon. We drove in our small convoy about 80 kilometers north to a place where there were several wetlands and adjacent harvested wheat fields. And the habitat combination is key to the success. Stan told us that the cranes are up early in the morning to feed in the fields. They're eating spilt grain, and then after they head to water for safety and rest, and then they come back in the late afternoon for another feed, and then they head back to the water bodies for overnight. So that water body field combination is important. They've got to be close together, and so really, in a sense, the real credit goes to Carol for locating Stan, and he was just a brilliant guy to be with. He was totally understated and incredibly competent.
Brian, whooping cranes, the quintessential Canadian endangered species that we've heard about all of our lives. Has something happened to their numbers?
Yeah, the quick answer is that it's a positive story. Their numbers have been gradually increasing since the 1940s. In fact, in 1941, there was only 21 birds remaining. And you and I have talked about that before in past shows, Doug, but of that 21 birds remaining, only 14 of those are really responsible as what they call founding birds. They're the ones responsible for the present population, and that population is up just over 800 birds now. So Wood Buffalo National Park in northern Alberta is where our Canadian crane population nests. The total population in Wood Buffalo is 504 whooping cranes, and that was confirmed by the International Crane Foundation. He said that the larger flocks, like the one that we saw, and Doug, our biggest flock that we saw had 55 birds in it. He said that those have only really been regularly observed at this time of the year in the past 5 years.
Well, lucky you. Were they easy to find?
Well, without our guide, we would have had a tricky time.
Sure.
We might have found them, Doug. We drove a lot of gravel roads with our guide, but without his knowledge of where these birds might be seen, we may still be up in Saskatoon. we might have found the cranes, but we would have. We wouldn't have had the numbers, I'm sure, and we wouldn't have had the time to observe their behavior. The landscape is hilly. It's easy for the birds to hide. They're very shy. They're very wary. Stan said that if we see a whooping crane, pull up very close behind his vehicle and then watch the whooping crane for a period of time, and if Stan gets out of his vehicle, then it's okay for us to get out of ours, but we had to get out on the side away from the whooping cranes and to keep our silhouette out of sight. And we first encountered 7 adults at about 20 to 10 in the morning. Our second sighting was about a half hour later. An hour after that, we had 12 birds, and then the bonanza was the way we finished off the day, and that happened with the 55 birds just after lunch. So really it was because of the guide that we saw all those birds, and because the guide was so confident and he knew that we would be seeing more birds, we were able to spend time with each group that we saw, and because of that, we saw some wonderful behavior.
Yeah, what kind of behavior?
Well, we saw a lot of feeding, of course, and It's interesting to watch them feed. They move very efficiently over the stubble. They're picking up wheat that's left behind after the harvest. We saw lots of preening, of course, of resting, but Doug, the most entertaining was to watch wings spreading and leaping in what I would define as dancing. And, of course, the whooping crane dance is famous amongst crane observers. My wife thought that they were kickboxing, but apparently the whooping cranes, the males will dance in front of the females to show off, to show their agility and their ability, and because it takes several years for a pair bond to develop, but once that bond develops, it's a bond for life. And I would also call some of the behavior just feisty behavior. You know, they're getting a lot of high-protein food out there.
Brian, once again, you are the luckiest man on earth. Thanks for this. Stay well.
You bet. It's just a drive to Saskatoon. It's easy.